There is a failure you never talk about. Not because it wasn't real, but because somewhere along the way you decided that talking about it meant reliving it, and reliving it meant confirming something you've been trying to disprove ever since. So you carry it, quietly, in the back of everything you do, in the half-second of hesitation before you start something new. In the voice that appears the moment things start going well and whispers, "Remember what happened last time." In the way you sometimes sabotage the very thing you want most, not because you don't want it, but because wanting it and losing it again feels like more than you can survive. This is not a video about how to succeed. There are enough of those. This is a video about the weight of what already went wrong and what it's doing to you while you pretend it isn't there. Because the fear of failing is almost never about the future. It's about a past that never finished speaking. Think about the last time you started something and stopped before it was finished. A project, a relationship, a dream you were building slowly and then suddenly weren't building at all. What made you stop? If you're honest, completely honest, it wasn't circumstances. It wasn't timing. It wasn't resources. It was a feeling. A familiar feeling that arrived without warning and told you something you've heard before. That this wasn't going to work. That you weren't going to be enough. That the outcome you were hoping for was for other people. People who hadn't already proven, at least once, that they couldn't make it. That feeling has a history, and that history is what we're going to find today. Because most people think the fear of failing is about what might happen. But the people who carry it the deepest are not afraid of a hypothetical future failure. They are afraid of a very specific past one. One that left a mark they've been covering with competence or avoidance or busyness ever since. The failure you fear most has already happened. And everything since has been a negotiation with what it left behind. Think back, not to last year. Further, there was a moment, maybe in school, maybe at home, maybe in a room with someone whose opinion felt like a verdict, where something you tried didn't work, and the response to that failure wasn't gentle. It wasn't curious. It wasn't, "Let's understand what happened and try again." It was something closer to a sentence. A conclusion drawn about you, not about what you did, about who you are. Maybe it came from a teacher who marked your work in red and moved on without looking up. Maybe it came from a parent whose disappointment filled a room without a single word. Maybe it came from a grade, a rejection letter, a performance review, a competition you lost in front of people who mattered to you. And in that moment, something happened that nobody warned you about. Your brain did what brains are designed to do. It looked for a pattern. It asked, "What does this mean?" And without enough experience or language or protection to answer that question wisely, it landed on the simplest and most devastating conclusion available. This is what I am. Not, this is what happened once. Not, this is something I can learn from. But this is the evidence. This is the proof. This is what happens when I try. And from that moment forward, the fear of failing was no longer about failure. It was about confirmation. Every new attempt became a test of whether that original sentence was true. And the safest way to never confirm it was to never fully try. This one is harder to talk about because we give ourselves more permission to fail at work than to fail at love. Think about a relationship that ended in a way that left you feeling like you were the reason. Not the only reason, but the reason that mattered. The one that kept replaying. The conversation you should have had. The moment you pulled away when you should have stayed. The version of yourself you brought to that relationship that wasn't quite enough to hold it together. And what did you do with that? Most people do one of two things. They throw themselves into the next relationship so fast that there's no time to examine what happened. Or they don't. They stay alone, not from contentment but from calculation. Because the math of loving someone and losing them feels too expensive to repeat. Both of those are the same response in different costumes. They are both ways of making sure the original sentence, the one that said you are the kind of person things don't work out for, never gets tested again. Because if you try again and it fails again, you will have twice the evidence. And twice the evidence feels unsurvivable. But here is what the fear is hiding. The relationship didn't fail because you are fundamentally broken. It failed because two human beings, each carrying their own unexamined weight, couldn't find a way to hold it together at that particular moment in their particular lives. That is not a verdict on your worth. That is a description of something that is hard. The sentence was wrong, but you've been living inside it for a long time. This is the level most people never examine, because it requires admitting something that feels almost too vulnerable to say out loud. At some point, the failure stopped being something that happened to you and became something you believed about yourself. You can tell when this has happened by paying attention to your language, not the language you use with other people, the language you use inside your own head when things go wrong. Most people don't say, "That didn't work out." They say, "I knew this would happen. I always do this. I'm not the kind of person who succeeds at this." Of course it went wrong. That language is not describing a pattern. It is enforcing one. Every time you narrate your failure as inevitable, you are not reporting the truth. You are building a prison and calling it a personality. And the cruelest part is that this prison feels like self-awareness. It feels like honesty, like you're simply being realistic about who you are and what you're capable of. But realistic and limited are not the same thing. And the story you've been telling yourself about your failures has been mistaken for reality for so long that you've forgotten it's a story. You are not your failures, but you have been living as if you are. And that living has shaped every choice you've made since the sentence was first handed down. Here is the thing nobody says about the fear of failing. It is not weakness. It is loyalty. Loyalty to a version of yourself that was hurt badly enough to make a decision. Never again. Never again will I try that hard and lose. Never again will I want something that much and have it taken. Never again will I be that exposed. And so the fear of failing became a bodyguard. It stands between you and every new attempt. It scans for risk. It finds the evidence that this too will go wrong, and it pulls you back before you can be hurt again. It is trying to protect you. It has always been trying to protect you, but it is using data from a past that is no longer the whole truth about who you are. It is protecting a younger version of you from a world that no longer exists in the same form. And this is the Lacanian truth that most psychology videos won't tell you. The fear of failing is not about the failure itself. It is about the meaning the failure was given, the gap between who you believed you were supposed to be and who that moment proved you were. That gap is what terrifies you, not the outcome, the verdict. But verdicts can be appealed. Sentences can be overturned, not by pretending the failure didn't happen, but by finally examining who gave you that interpretation and whether they had the authority to make it permanent. They didn't. They never did. Here is what healing from failure is not. It is not forgetting. It is not pretending it didn't happen. It is not rewriting the story so that the pain wasn't real, or the loss wasn't significant, or the thing that went wrong somehow secretly went right. The failure happened. It hurt. Something real was lost. And you are allowed to know that without letting it be the last word about who you are. Soltar, releasing, is not the same as erasing. It is the act of carrying the experience without letting the experience carry you. It is the difference between, "This happened to me," and "This is what I am." Both sentences acknowledge the same event. Only one of them gives it permanent residence in your identity. And every tradition that has ever tried to help human beings navigate loss and failure has pointed toward the same truth in different languages, that there is something in you that existed before the failure. Something that the failure did not create and therefore cannot destroy. Something that certain traditions call the soul, others call the self, others call something they have no word for, but can only point at in the quiet moments when the noise stops. Whatever you call it, and the name belongs to you alone, it was not damaged by what went wrong. It was present through it. And it is present now. The creator of whatever you believe created you did not build you to be defined by your worst moment. You were not designed to be a monument to the thing that broke. You were designed to be someone who broke and kept moving, not because the breaking didn't matter, but because you are more than the sum of what has fallen apart. The fear of failing is real. The failures themselves were real. But they are not the evidence that the sentence was true. They are the evidence that you were brave enough to try in a world that does not guarantee outcomes. And that bravery, that willingness to want something and reach for it, even knowing it might not work. That is not the behavior of someone who fails. That is the behavior of someone who is fully, completely alive. Before you go, think of one failure you've never said out loud. Not because it was too small, because it still carries too much weight. You don't have to share the story. Just drop one word in the comments. One word that describes what that failure felt like. I'll read every single one, and the next video might be about exactly what you left there. If this reached something you've been carrying quietly, subscribe. This is what we do at the Phrase Decoder. We find the weight underneath the weight, and sometimes naming it is the first step to putting it down